You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. Today I have some frothing at the mouth and yet eminently reasonable, of course, commentaries for you to share with you, and also some terrific guests. We start off with one of the authors of the book, The Notorious RBG. That sounds like a story of a rock mogul, a hip-hop mogul, and of course it's the story of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Justice of the Supreme Court, and a lively book. Second with us is the president of the Women's Media Center, one of our own, Julie Burton, to tell us about the newest baby from the Women's Media Center, a stunning and much-needed report on media coverage of the subject of reproductive rights. And last, well, think of it this way. Women, young, racing car drivers, competitive, and Palestinian. What could possibly go wrong, or right, in a stunning new film? So all of those coming right up, but first we need to go, yeah, you got it, inside the headlines. Lots of items this week. A Texas grand jury convened to investigate accusations that Planned Parenthood tried to illegally profit from the sale of fetal tissues, found the organization completely innocent of any misdeeds, and instead indicted with felony charges two of the abortion opponents who had secretly recorded videos they later doctored to make their case. Take a moment and celebrate this one. The seizure of the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge in Oregon by white armed right-wing ranchers continues. I've spoken about this in a recent broadcast and podcast, and since then I've talked with my friend, the writer Ursula K. Le Guin, who lives in Portland and frequents the nearby wildlife refuge. Ursula knows all sorts of things about the situation, more than you could ever learn from press coverage. Fortunately, she's blogging about this, and you can read her reports, which are written superbly, by the way. She just cannot help herself, on her website, www.ursulakleguin.com. That's all one word, Ursula K. Le Guin, and it's Leguin. On another front entirely, the U.S. presidential election. So, okay, I'm getting tired of feeling the burn. Apparently, even an old, I can say this, we're almost the same age, white socialist male, everyone pretty much acknowledges doesn't stand a chance of winning the general election, which in turn looks like that would mean handing over our democracy to Donald J. Trump or Ted Cruz. Even that elderly, lefty, pale male is, to some people, preferable to a woman. Bernie Sanders, who I'm tempted to call by his initials, BS, has struck some folks as comparable to once candidate Obama. But Obama won because he was young, gifted, black, and a breath of real fresh air. Not yet another old white guy spewing not even new left, but old left jargon delivered in a lecturing, hectoring tone. Obama himself has flatly rejected any similarity with Sanders, noting in an interview with Politico's Off Message podcast that Sanders, quote, hasn't yet been subjected to a rigorous examination by the press, a rigor, he added, quote, Hillary is very familiar with. He also said Hillary was, quote, wicked smart, with such experience as a senator and secretary of state that, quote, she can govern and she can start here day one, more experienced than any non-vice president has ever been who aspires to this office, close quote. Wow. Sounds to me as close an endorsement as he dare give in a primary in his own party. Obama also noted that when they themselves were primary opponents, she had to work harder than he did during the contest because, quote, she had to do everything I had to do except, like Ginger Rogers, backward and in high heels. He paid tribute to her strength and determination while damning Sanders with faint praise, noting, quote, Bernie's attitude is, I got nothing to lose. But, Obama continued, seeming to give the media a nudge, eventually you guys are going to do your job, in exposing BS's pie-in-the-sky rhetoric and inability to make his plans really workable. Sanders, who admirably refused to join the hounds baying at Hillary's emails, has now gone on attack over her having garnered high fees for speeches that she delivered on Wall Street before and after being the junior senator from New York. I have to say, I do not see the sin here, because male charismatic political and cultural figures have received speaking fees as high or higher from the same sources. When you're invited to give lectures, as I have been for years, you accept because you want your message heard. It took me decades of exhaustion and being hard-pressed, literally, to pay my bills, to consider even asking for a speaker's honorarium, only to find that those interested in hearing what I had to say were willing to pay fairly, although certainly not the prices politicians get. Writers and activists are decidedly in a way lower category, especially the female ones. But there's nothing wrong with being paid for speaking, so long as you're speaking about something you care about and you want people to hear, and so long as you don't permit those inviting you to determine the content or, for that matter, your actions. That's what Hillary has done, on a far grander scale, though. She's spoken about women's rights in villages across the globe, and she spoke to those who could damned well afford to pay a fee, Wall Street bankers and financiers, preaching truth to power about how they had better learn to live with fair regulations, how they should not gouge investors, should employ and promote and pay equally more women of all ethnicities and more men of color, how they should develop family-friendly workplaces. I don't know about you, but I, for one, think that's a message Wall Street needs to hear. Nor, given her voting record in the Senate, was there ever a hint of her being their puppet. But then, this is only the latest front of attack against a woman many people seem to confuse with a bullseye target, and now Sanders, sadly, has joined them. Personally, I wonder if some of the millennial infatuation with him isn't because, as one young friend told me, I find him so feisty, just so cute. Rather patronizing, that. But when I hear those who once worried about Hillary being too old for the White House now rooting for Sanders, who is older than her, I think, can the millennial thing be the mother thing? You know, the psychological finding that the younger you are, the more you can't help but perceive power in the guise of a female, and rebel against that, because you're relatively closer to childhood, when your impression of power was embodied in the mother, the parent you saw the most. The older you get, the sooner you get disabused of that notion. This is, by the way, another reason why feminists want men to actually really parent. As for Clinton's declining favorables, it might be refreshing if my colleagues in the media mention now and then that she is still far and ahead of every other candidate, Democrat or Republican, nationally, and we do not yet live in the United States of Iowa. So far, there's less blatant sexism in the coverage of HRC than there was in 2008, although apparently anything with her name attached to it is still a blood sport. Polls showing Sanders ahead of Clinton in New Hampshire make banner headlines, while polls that have her leading or Sanders slowing are mostly ignored. Consequently, the flow of news we get about Clinton is drip, drip, drip negative. The master narrative of the press about her having been once inevitable, and the incentive to frame a better story by portraying the Democratic race as unexpectedly competitive, well, that's just too powerful to resist. Sanders is well suited to New Hampshire and Iowa, as his support comes mostly from white liberals, and the Democratic electorate in those states has lots of them. But when the primary calendar turns to more diverse and populous states, then the press, plus old white lefty guys and white millennials, will wake up to what most American women of all ethnicities, classes, and ages, plus African American and Latino men, have known all along, that this is a deadly serious election, and we intend to make history again. So come on, media, as President Obama urges, do your job. And now for my first guest. Irin Carmon is an Israeli-American journalist and commentator. She's a national reporter at MSNBC, where she covers women, politics, and culture for the website and on air both. She's a visiting fellow in the program for the study of reproductive justice at Yale Law School, and in 2011 she was named one of Forbes' 30 Under 30 in media and featured in New York Magazine as the face, one of them, of young feminism. Here is Irin Carmon, one of the authors of the notorious RBG. Irin, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Robin.
I am a real fan of this book. This is such a fun, wonderful book. It is called, of course, The Notorious RBG, the Life and Times of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And I know Ruth. She's one of ours. She came to the court through the women's movement. And it's so delightful to see that she's become a great pop culture figure where people have tattooed her face on themselves and they've set her dissents to music, and she's viral. She's gone viral in tributes. But the book is the thing that has made much of that happen. And it's so wonderfully and funny. I mean, it's readers, listeners, if you haven't read it yet, become readers, because this is a book that is as interactive and lively as a website. It's not only got personal details of Ruth's life that you didn't know, that she was a Nancy Drew fan and had this long, lovely, lustful, committed marriage for many decades, but it's got cartoons and jokes and pictures and serious, wonderful marginalia and annotated dissents and decisions so that you understand what the otherwise impenetrable legal language really means. How did you come to do this wonderful book, you and Shana Kniznik?
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Robin, because, I mean, we've had, in the beginning when we were imagining this book, we thought this is not a kind of book that's been done before, both one that is serious and substantive, but also irreverent and visually driven. So thank you for very much describing what it was we were trying to do. Shauna started the notorious RBG Tumblr when she was a second-year law student at NYU, and she was so inspired by Justice Ginsburg's dissenting voice in 3 different cases, all of which involved remedies to racial injustice. And the court was seriously undermining these democratically enacted laws in the name of basically racism being over. And Shauna, even though she felt great despair about this, felt really inspired by the fact that Justice Ginsburg had dissented from the bench 3 times, this unusual protest. And so she started a Tumblr called Notorious RBG that was a reference to the Notorious BIG.
Sure.
And it really caught on. As you mentioned, there's all kinds of tributes to Justice Ginsburg. And we wanted to turn it into a book that would take that enthusiasm, take it to the next level, help people understand. I love that you've said that she's one of us. She came out of the movement. She always gives credit to the movement that she was part of.
I know.
And it very much shaped her. And so we wanted to situate her in that movement, talk about the ideas that animated her, the cases that she won and lost, what were the values that she stood for, both as an activist and a lawyer and a judge.
Boy, wow. And have you ever,
also as a person and a boss.
Have you ever done that? I mean, and it's so, the expanse of the book, the breadth and the depth of it is what's quite remarkable. It's fun to read, and it has juicy little, details like friends know this, but now the world can know that she clues you in as to what her dissent or decision is going to be by the kind of collar that she wears, the white thing that they all wear, and she has different versions of it, and they always tip you off. Juicy little details like that, all the way up to one of the things, Irin, that I love about it is that with all of the separation and pitting against each other that is sometimes tried to do between older feminists and younger feminists, and I don't find that a lot in my encounter with younger women, but I know that it exists out there. This is such a tribute from younger women to an older feminist, from younger feminist to an older one, and it's such a bridging of the gap, and inviting younger women in to see who she is and what she did and the context she came out of, that I'm very grateful for that.
Well, I think it's very notable that just as Justice Ginsburg was being told that it was time for her to retire, that it was time for her to make room for somebody else who was younger and it was someone else's turn, young women started venerating her. She was 80 years old when Shauna started the Tumblr.
Wow.
So, and she herself has said, imagine me an icon at 82. But you're right. I think that it is an intergenerational moment, and we were very conscious of that when we were putting together the book. We dedicated the book to the women on whose shoulders we stand.
I know.
She very much sees herself as part of an intergenerational conversation. She was radicalized by her students. She was not yet a feminist,
right,
in the official sense, in the movement sense, until her students started pushing her to teach a class on women in the law.
Right.
She looked back to the abolitionist feminists and the suffragists for inspiration. She looked at the civil rights movement for inspiration. So she herself has been part of an intergenerational dialogue and also helped create one. And I think one reason that young women are so inspired by her and want to know more about the work that she did in the 1970s is because none of that is finished.
That's
because
right.
We are aware of all of the ways in which feminism's promise is still being fought for.
Right, and we're under assault right now as almost never before. I mean, I always have this theory that this is because we've been making great strides, and so this is yet I'm getting whiplash from the backlash now, as we all are. But one of the things that is so imperatively obvious in this book, and for which I'm grateful, is that this takes all of us on board at any age, fighting it any way we can. I always say, no, I'm not ready to hand over my torch. Get your own damn torch. We need more torches. And it is so important, the vision, the smarts, and the freshness that young women bring to feminism, as well as the slightly war-weary experience and energy of the older women and everybody in between, and smart men who know that they want to be on the winning side. But it's been a dark and difficult time, and Ruth is certainly one of the great beacons and has steadfastly remained so. I mean, my only mystery with her that I tease her about is how I understand that I understand, you know where I'm going with this. I understand that you share the love of opera, but my God, how can you be personal friends with Scalia? And she always gets that strange little, wry smile,
Yes.
and doesn't really reply, takes evasive action.
Every single reading or event that we have done, somebody has asked about that.
Of course, absolutely. And they do love opera, but the astonishing thing is that they even correct each other's. They both love language. I don't sense it so much in him, but that's because I can't stand what he says. But she has even corrected his briefs at times, and that's going, I think, a little too far. Nonetheless, the book is fantastic. Are you going to do more books like this?
I'd certainly like to. I mean, I think it would be, we want to find somebody, I want to find somebody whose life is as engaging and passionate and brings to bear all of these intellectual issues as Justice Ginsburg. It's a pretty tall order.
Yeah, very tall order.
It was a great experience. I'd certainly like to do it again.
You must have had, that comes across. You must have had so damn much fun doing it.
This book was a labor of love for sure, but it was also a real community effort. The academics who helped us make those annotations, some of whom were former clerks of Justice Ginsburg, they were part of that community, and so were the people who made all of the cool fan art and the comics. And so we were thinking something that she does so well is to give credit to others and to work in collaboration with others, and she talks about it all the time. And for a book that had two people at the center of it, it was something we tried to be very intentional about, and to say, this is also about a community. And I think that's one reason why the book has taken off, because people feel like they can use it as a starting point for their frustrations and the things that they're inspired by and the better world that they want to make together.
You're absolutely right. I mean, and it had that effect on me, and I've been at this quite a while. And I also know your subject. So if it had that effect on me, think of the incredible joy that it'll bring to people who don't do either of those crazy things.
I'm honored to hear that.
Oh, well, I'm honored to have you on the program. And I look forward to all the new good stuff that you will be doing, both as a reporter at MSNBC and as a feminist leader now, and as a website personality. And the book is, again, called Notorious RBG, The Life and Times of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. We've been talking with Irin Carmon, and she's together with Shauna Knisnik are the authors. Irin did the text, and correct me if I'm wrong, Shauna did the great design. It's a wonderful book, and get it and read it if you haven't already. And if you have, get it and give it to somebody else so they can. It's available at all booksellers. Am I correct, online and off?
That's correct.
Oh, thank you, Irin, for the book and for being with us today on Women's Media Center Live. Thanks a lot.
It's been a joy to be here. Thank you, Robin.
We have to take a short break here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, but coming right up, you won't want to miss this. The facts and figures behind the quote-unquote coverage of women's reproductive rights in this country. Prepare to be shocked and angry and activated.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back. My next guest has been on the program before, but today she's here to talk about the newest report from the Women's Media Center on reproductive rights, its coverage in the media, which is not good news. She is the president of the Women's Media Center, Julie Burton, and the executive producer of this program, a member of the family, a sister, a friend, and a colleague, with a staggering report. Julie, sister, colleague, friend, welcome back to the program.
My pleasure. Very happy to be here.
Today, you're in your capacity as the president of the Women's Media Center and an activist and a media expert to tell us about the dynamite, really important new Women's Media Center report on reproductive issues and media coverage, which is just newly out. Take it away.
Perfect. This week, the Women's Media Center released the WMC Media Watch Gender Gap in Coverage of Reproductive Issues. And we looked at media coverage in 12 major platforms over an entire year. We looked at 1,385 articles about reproductive health and rights, and we found a troubling pattern. Men's voices, perspectives, and opinions routinely eclipsed women's voices, perspectives, and experiences. Even on this issue, reproductive rights, abortion, contraception, the whole range of issues that fundamentally affect a woman's life. So if I could just take a second to just give you a little highlight of some of those who are doing a better job.
Yes, please. Oh, some good news would be welcome, but we need to know the truth too. Go ahead.
Right. So looking at, and by the way, I do want to say, a number of men do cover this issue, obviously, that's what we're talking about, and they do a very good job. And that's important, and we want them in there. But hello, this is a very big deal in women's lives, and there are experiences that you have and you bring to the table as a reporter if you are a woman. And what we've found in this research is how the issue is covered is greatly affected by your gender. So just to start off with bylines by gender, I have to say the New York Daily News is doing a very good job. 48% of the bylines are by women, 48% by men, 3% there's no name on the byline. Mm-hmm. USA Today, pretty good, 44% women, 37% men, 19 have no byline. Mm-hmm. But on the other end, we have Associated Press, which is one of the biggest platforms for covering this issue nationwide. Oh, it's huge. The wires are huge, and it's what, in many places, it's the only news they get on these issues. So 25%, 1/4 of the stories at AP are bylined by women. Ugh. 64% are bylined by men.
Oh, my God. This is outrageous.
And a paper that many of us dearly love, the New York Times, 32% of the articles on these issues are written by women and 57% by men.
Well, I love it a lot less right now. I mean, this is appalling. This is like, I don't know, flash backward in time and to Reconstruction after the Civil War, and interviewing people about the issue of slavery and Jim Crow, and having most of the so-called experts be former or current plantation owners. You know, last week, I think, or the week before on this program, I did a commentary on a new study that shows, in fact, that in the pundit talk shows, talking head shows, not only is the majority men, but the majority are Roman Catholic clergy. I mean, it leaves me speechless, inarticulate with rage.
It's surreal.
Yeah, I put it in the surrealism corner. You just bet. You bet.
Right, and you're right. The source, let me just give you the top papers on source quotes by gender, because we found not only are more men quoted in the stories, but when we looked a little deeper, we found that men talked to more men as their sources, and women talked to more women. Mm-hmm. Denver Post is the worst of all of these that we looked at, and there have been a lot of reproductive issues in play, obviously, in the last year in Colorado. 28% of the expert sources quoted are women, 52% are men.
My God.
And then when we talk about topics, that was another thing that was very telling about gender. Men got the hard beats. They got to cover elections, mm-hmm. and that news is primarily all written by men. And then the news about abortion and contraception as health care, mm-hmm. as a health care issue fundamental to, say, 51% of the population.
You think?
That was covered by women.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you look at presidential elections, 67% of all articles about the presidential candidates that talk about a reproductive issue, 67% are written by men. And that's huge. That is just huge.
The sound you hear or don't hear is me quietly grinding my teeth here.
We have a huge decision coming up. March 2nd, the Supreme Court will be hearing a case from Texas, which is the case that is called Whole Woman's Health versus Cole. Mm-hmm. And that case in Texas effectively got rid of half of the abortion clinics in the state, so that now so many women throughout the state have nowhere to go within the state to access health care services.
That's the strategy that the Friends of the Fetus have, which is that if we can't make abortion illegal, we'll just make it impossible to find.
Right. And there have been moments throughout time since 1973, when Roe became the law of the land, that some very big cases have changed what's possible for women to control their own lives. First one was Roe. Then in 1989, the Webster decision came down and allowed for the first time regulations to take place in the first trimester.
Right.
Then a few years later, because there were many challenges to that law, a few years later, the Casey decision came in, and Justice Day O'Connor wrote a new standard, got rid of the trimester standard, and wrote the undue burden standard.
Right. And
this case is the first case since 1992 which has a chance to overturn all of those regulations and laws.
So while the court is deliberating this, if the media is not representing it in a way that is actually fair and represents the population and the concerns, it's a double whammy, isn't it? It's
a massive whammy. And the stories that need to be told are the stories of those women who need those health services and have gone. It's 1 in 3 American women, by the time she's age 45, will have had an abortion.
Yes, of course. And poor women are the ones that these decisions impact, and this kind of coverage impacts worse on, because women who have means can always go to another place, another state. They can travel. They can go to another country, as they used to when it was illegal here. But the worst of the undue burden falls on poor women, in fact. So this is, never have we needed an honest and fair media that resembles the people that it's covering more than now on this.
It's crucial. It's absolutely crucial. And in the tradition of my favorite new Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau in Canada, who put half of his cabinet, he named women, and when asked why, he said, well, because it's 2015. I really want to say to all of these editors and these news outlets, when they say, why should we do this, beyond the obvious gender facts of who this issue affects and how, is it's 2016. Can't you put women on these stories?
Yeah, it's absolutely outrageous. People can get a hold of the report by going to womensmediacenter.com, can't they? And then
they can, and on our Twitter account, which is at Women's Media Center, and center spelled CNTR, and on our Facebook page, Women's Media Center. And they'll find many other reports of interest there. Yeah,
well, we've become the because of you, largely as president, we've become the go-to center for reports on media, status of women in media, and now this one, reproductive rights in media. And you can download it for free, listeners. So it's, again, womensmediacenter.com or via Twitter. It's a really important tool to have while you argue this issue. Never. I mean, the importance of a fair and just media in a democracy has never been more evident than right now and in this situation with this subject.
I also want to let people know about some other reports they will find on our website. So I really do hope every listener will come to the Women's Media Center. We put out a report in December on campus rape and sexual assault. Very important, powerful report.
It is.
And we have a report coming up in the next month on Oscar nominations. And this report will be much deeper and far more extensive than our past reports on the Oscar nominations. And I have to say, we stand 100% with Oscars, so hashtag Oscars So White. But I have to say, when you look at the numbers for non-acting categories, which is the creative forces, the writers, the producers, the directors, everybody behind the scenes,
right.
It really is Oscars so male.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a huge gender dynamic at play, and I'm very excited about this report that we are about to release. And if you are not familiar with our Women Under Siege project, which tracks sexualized violence in conflict zones, our director, Lauren Wolf, just returned from reporting in Congo and Rwanda, and she has some incredibly important and compelling reports. So stay tuned. We've got lots of other new projects and reports coming out, but there's really good stuff on our website, womensmediacenter.com, and I urge all of our listeners to come check us out.
Hip, hip, hooray, everybody, for Julie Burton. Thank you, dear heart, for being with us, and in the larger sense, and also today on Women's Media Center Live.
Thank you, Robin. I am very proud of Women's Media Center Live and delighted to be on the program.
And now it's time for the Surrealism Corner. The champion resident of the Surrealism Corner, the permanent resident, one might say, is Saudi Arabia. And they've just done it again. Saudi Arabia's top cleric has declared the playing of chess forbidden in a fatwa, religious decree, calling it a waste of time and money, and one that creates hatred between players. He was speaking in response to a question from a caller to a Saudi television show. This was Grand Mufti Sheikh Abdulaziz al-Sheikh. And he said the game was the work of Satan, like alcohol and gambling. This is despite its long history in the Middle East, where chess is played across the entire Arab world, and some say originally emanated with Salah ad-Din, otherwise known as Saladin. But never mind. So a member of the Saudi Chess Association, Musa bin Tali, took to Twitter on Thursday last to defend the game, saying that it had nothing to do with gambling and that the association had held 70 events in the kingdom and caused no problems, and he even posted photos of Saudi players at the group's events, including one posing with the prince from the United Arab Emirates. But again, never mind. In his statement on television, the Grand Mufti equated chess with gambling, as I said earlier, and other such pursuits. He said, "It makes the rich man poor and makes the poor man rich." Let's pause for a minute and think that there's anything wrong with that. I don't see a problem with that myself. And he said it causes hostility and wastes time where it should not be spent. So he's created quite another kerfluffer. One of the Grand Muftis, you may recall, some months ago, said that cucumbers and bananas should be outlawed because women could get really strange thoughts and pleasure themselves with the fruit and vegetables. How you outlaw cucumbers and bananas, I don't know, but you should consider doing so along with chess. I have this theory, which of course is that he's not against chess because he thinks it has anything to do with gambling, which it doesn't, or alcohol, which it might if you have a glass of wine while you play. He's against chess because somebody has told him that the most powerful figure on the chessboard is the queen. And you know what? She can move as far as she likes in any direction. We have to take another break here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and when I come back, well, think Indy 500, Indianapolis 500, and Arab women. Does it seem like cognitive dissonance? Well, just you wait and don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And we're back again. This time to talk about the new feature-length documentary, Speed Sisters. Two of the filmmakers are here with us. Jessica Devaney is the producer, and she's an award-winning producer and co-produced the Peabody Award-winning short My Neighborhood in 2012 and its companion web series Homefront in 2011. Amber Faris is an award-winning documentary filmmaker and photographer. She was the director. Her feature-length directorial debut, this film, Speed Sisters, premiered at Hot Docs in 2015, where it was one of the top 20 Audience Choice Awards and won the Audience Award at the Irish Film Institute Festival. Here are Amber and Jessica for Speed Sisters. Amber and Jessica, both of you, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having us.
Well, I am a total, utter, blathering fan of this film. Speed Sisters, which is about the first all-woman race car driving team in the Middle East, and in fact, I would imagine in the Muslim world, is just extraordinary that these women, these 5 young women, have bucked against male-dominated Palestinians, the streetcar racing scene, and it is perhaps one of the, if not the most feminist film I've ever seen. It's a documentary. I just love it. I love it. And
Thank you.
Amber, you're the filmmaker, and Jessica, you, whose work I've known for some time, are the producer. So tell us, Amber, you start. Tell me how this film came to be.
Sure. I was living in Palestine, in Ramallah at the time, and was invited along with our other producer, Avi Goldstein. We were invited to go and see a car race in Bethlehem, and I just remember at the time thinking that it was so bizarre. I wasn't really expecting to hear that would be taking place, given all the restrictions on movement and lack of space. Where could they possibly be having this race?
Well, also just the 4 words "car race" in Bethlehem are pretty surreal.
Yeah, exactly. So we go there, and it's on top of this hill that was Arafat's old helicopter landing pad, which is just really an abandoned sort of tarmac. And we got there, and it was just this huge like festive scene, tons of people lining the tracks and cars revving and music playing, and sort of in the middle of all of that, there were these girls putting on their helmets to get ready to race. I was like, what is that? Like, it took me back. It took me by such surprise. And I just had to meet them, and I just thought it was like, it could, just be an interesting way to tell a story of a place that we're also familiar with in terms of what is happening in the news, but don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. So I went up and approached them.
That's what's so amazing about it, because it breaks all the stereotypes of what we think we're familiar with about Palestine, and it breaks stereotypes about women, and it's these 5 women. Mara, who is from a refugee camp where in fact I have visited, and there's class differences among them as well. I mean, one of them is from a fairly wealthy family, comparatively, Mona, and one of them takes boxing lessons as well as racing, and one of them is from a family of racers, and she's part Latina, and one of them, who gets married at the end of the film, Maysoon, is the team captain. But it's you got to understand, for me to be hyperventilating this way, I mean, racing, car racing is so not my thing. Totally not my thing.
It's not my thing either.
But rebellion, which this film is totally about, is definitely my thing. And the subtleties, the love and the competition and the ironies among these women, their feminism, their jockeying, it's an extremely sophisticated film emotionally, and I literally laughed and cried and sat on the edge of my seat watching it, who would win? Oh my God. Jessica, how did and when did you become involved in it?
I came involved while Amber and Avi and the team were in mid-production. I joined in the late production and editing stages, and I was just really drawn to the team's approach, the way Amber, Rabab, and Avi were looking at the story. And I was coming from work with an organization called Just Vision, where I had been focusing on stories about grassroots leadership, human rights defenders, and activism to end the occupation and build a future of freedom and equality. And I think, as important as movement building is, I really saw how Speed Sisters could open up new audiences to become invested in what it means to live under the reality of military occupation and political violence. And
I mean, of course, I know your work with Just Vision, and we've highlighted Just Vision's work on the program before. But this, in addition, one of the things that's so beautiful about this is, in fact, that the realities of occupation are just presented, in fact, the way that they occur to most Palestinians, which is a daily, debilitating fact of life. But no rhetoric, no, drama around it. I mean, these are young women trying to go about their lives, in some cases fighting their families, in one case with an amazingly wonderful, supportive father. And so you can enter into it from their perspective, which is there's another roadblock, there's another checkpoint, there's another, but front and center is their stories, and that's what's so absolutely extra, and the individual drama of those stories is riveting. How, Amber, did you? In some cases, they're talking very intimately about their lives, and you're following them into their homes and into their disappointments and into their, interfighting, intercompetition, while they try to be a team. Oh God, this is true of every feminist group in the world. You try to be a team, but meanwhile, so and so over there is driving you insane, and you are driving so and so over there, and she hates your guts, and you're jealous of that one. But you're trying, for the good of the cause, and so it's so familiar and hilarious. You must have developed extraordinary trust with them to be able to get that camera into such intimate surroundings.
Yeah, definitely. I spent a lot of time with them. It was fortunate for me. I was a first-time filmmaker. This was my first feature-length documentary. And
wow.
Yeah. And so I think part of it was not necessarily knowing what I was supposed to know. So, I would just bring my camera in everywhere without, thinking about it. But also I was living there, and so I was seeing them on a regular basis, which I think made a huge difference. I was part of the community in Ramallah and in Palestine, and I was known, and I, participated and was quite active, in aspects of the community and stuff. And so, so they developed, we developed a quite a close relationship quite quickly, and also I think too, it helped. A couple of things helped. One is I also come from an Arab background. My grandparents came from Lebanon, so I think there was a bit of comfort there.
And you're Canadian. You're Canadian now, yes?
I'm Canadian. Yeah,
right.
I'm Canadian born. Yeah. My grandparents immigrated to Canada in the early 1900s.
Mm-hmm.
But I also had an all female crew with me at all times. So when we were all of those scenes that are with the girls that are off the track,
yeah,
it was either myself and I used like a Palestinian. I had two different assistants that I used that were both Palestinian.
Brilliant.
And a camera, a female DP, Lucy Martins from Germany. So we really created this really safe environment for the girls. So and the families as well. Like we would go and stay with Mara's family and Janine for in their small house.
Yes.
They would give us one room there. We'd pile in. And so we really, we took the time to get to know them. And like I said, I just always had my camera with me to the point where if I didn't have it, they were like, where's the camera? Like they just got so used to, when people would tell us to stop filming, they'd be like, oh, don't worry about them. They just film everything. They're with us everywhere. Don't worry about it. Like they're just with us.
Well, I think the idea of the all-female film crew, I think, was brilliant. I mean, when the two times that I spent a lot of time in the camps, I always had female interpreters. So it just makes for a totally different ambience. And how do people? What website can they go to find out about the film and somehow organize to get it shown in their communities, or see it online?
So our website is speedsisters.tv.
That's speedsisters.tv. And
we'd love to connect with everyone on social media. Our Facebook is Speed Sisters The Film.
Mm-hmm.
So you can find us there, and also on Twitter.
Okay, Speed Sisters The Film. And boy, wow, is it ever one. Shukran in Arabic, but I just plain old thank you and congratulations and bravissima in English.
Thank you so much, Robin.
Thank you, yeah.
And we have another short break coming up here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I will be back directly with some fighting words. Stick around.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back again, just in time for some fighting words. So this past week, the World Economic Forum at Davos took place in Switzerland, where the world's most powerful leaders and tycoons and heads of state and central bankers and CEOs and billionaire investors all get together, not surprisingly most of them boys, to talk about foreign and economic policy, among other things. Of the 2,500 participants at the annual meeting, just 17.8% are women. That's according to the forum itself. So 2 women have started an initiative to include more girls. One of them, Teresa Whitmarsh, who is the head of the Washington State Investment Board, and she runs one of the biggest state pension funds in the United States. And the other is Elizabeth Nyamayaro, who heads the Women's He for She campaign at the United Nations. They have different approaches, but because of their pressure, this past week, gender inequality supposedly was a frequent topic of discussion, sometimes even among men in many of the panel sessions. Of course, you have to understand that the real stuff doesn't happen at the panels. It happens in the satellite parties that take place in the Alpine Resort in the evenings, and it happens in the luxury suites and the quiet get-togethers. In any event, Whitmarsh and Nyamayaro have taken this on with their different strategies. Whitmarsh's approach, God forbid it should be a name and shame strategy, is a soft one. She has made the case that placing more women in decision-making positions will lead to better performance and higher financial returns. And of course this is true, but I just get so tired of convincing men that this is good for them instead of just laying out the human rights justice of getting their feet off women's necks. In any event, she also makes the argument that investments are expected to be diversified, so why isn't that same logic applied to gender? If you stop and think about that sentence, you'll be appalled, because, of course, what it's saying is that the majority of the world's human population are equivalent to investments. Okay, moving right along, Ms. Nyamayaro, the one from the United Nations, has a different approach. She says that there needs to be a measurement that could serve as a reference point. So this past week, He for She has published for the first time a report of the gender makeup of 10 global companies, including Accor Hotels, Barclays, Twitter, McKinsey & Company, Schneider Electric, and Unilever. And the 10 companies are going to be disclosing the percentage of women in the top 6% of executives, need a magnifying glass, the board of directors, and new workers. They've also agreed to engage, whatever that means, with their employees on the subject, asking them to come up with solutions internally to increase the ratio of female to male employees. Apparently, it's beyond the mental capacity of the bosses to do so. The social media company Twitter was criticized last year for its lack of gender and racial diversity in the workforce, and since then it has pledged to raise the percentage of women to 35% whoopee of its global workforce and 25% of its leadership roles. Yeah, well. And as for the forum itself, they claim that they are trying to change the makeup of the conference attendees through corporate partnerships with about 100 companies. These strategic partners have agreed now to include at least one employee in 5 of the other gender at Davos in future. If they can't find one, that company has to restrict its participation to 4 people. Let the flags fly from the rooftops. What can I say? Look, I grant that this is a change. I want women to have power. I'm not a purist, even though the World Economic Gathering at Davos makes me involuntarily want to reach for the nearest picket sign. But the pace this change is being proposed at, and even asked for at, makes me queasy. I know you can catch more flies with honey than with vinegar, I know. But I have to ask, who really wants to catch flies? And that's it for today. This program is syndicated, but if you can't find the broadcast on a radio station in your area, you can always visit us at WMClive.com. There you can find the show, plus the archive of all our previous episodes. And we're at iTunes worldwide. There you can stream, download, and subscribe to the show's podcast. Also, be sure to find WMC Live on Facebook and Twitter. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Opinions expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. Regina K. Scully is our founding sponsor. Julie Burton, Women's Media Center President, is executive producer. And I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Don't forget to join us next week right here on Women's Media Center Live.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, tune your radio to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on WMCLive.com. Talk radio with a brain.